Good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to the movement, the Maximum Output Movement. I'm Austin Uku, and welcome to the Prototype Training System. All right, this is the module on measurements. So, measurements, the score. So, the game is body recomposition. And before I go on, there's going to be a text to go along with that. I like to throw that out there just because I want you to utilize both the text and the videos. Some of the things covered in the text might not be covered in the video. I had a little bit more time to sit down with the text and put that together. Here, I just wanted to talk to you and, one-on-one, shooting from the hip. So, back to the game. The game is body recomposition, all right? And without knowing the score, then you're just kind of messing around. So, what is the score? So, the score is essentially, how are we doing, all right? So, are we moving towards our goals? Are we tracking towards our goals? And so the only way you know that is, well, there's a couple different forms of measurement. So we'll talk about the stages going into that. But as far as the things that are going to lead you there, so the 3 pillars of fitness. So thinking about your resistance training, your nutrition, and your cardio. So with the resistance training, I have a system, cascading intensity whenever the exercises come up. Basically, thinking about maximizing the sets. So if there's several different parts, being able to be as accurate as possible, with the sets and reps. So accurate meaning doing the form the way it's supposed to look. So if there's a video or something like that, which the form to be correct, trying to stay as true to that as possible. Now, that doesn't necessarily always mean doing it more. You always want to look to do things better before you add to it. All right, and so then that form of measurement. So measuring your performance on the different activities that you get. All right, so covered the resistance. Moving forward, nutrition-wise, that's something where measurements can have a huge importance. All right, because essentially, food is fuel and material. So the things that I encourage you to look into is figuring out what your protein number is. So I'm not big on tracking everything, weighing every ounce of something. I do look at labels just to kind of have an idea. And so, but ultimately, the protein number is one thing that I hold the chief importance. So I think that has the biggest ability to change your overall body composition. So when you're not hitting that number, things just aren't moving as efficiently as possible because you're not really being able to build muscle. You're not being able to build or conserve muscle if you're underneath what they call the nitrogen threshold. So that is that invisible line that once your body gets past it, you start to grow. And once it gets past it in a negative way, your body starts to eat itself. It's the easiest way I can describe it. Now, to look for a number that you should be shooting for is, it's going to be somewhere in the range of a gram to 1.6 grams of protein per pound of body weight that you desire to be. So let's think about growing. So if you want to be a little bit bigger and you're 150, then say 160 grams of protein. I like to do that gram and a half. Conventional things people talk about, well, they actually talk about that range, but if you don't know what that number is, then you're going to miss it all the time because it's more than people think. And so by looking at your plate and figuring out what your protein number looks like physically, then you're going to be able to shoot for that, just kind of understanding that, okay, I have to have this much protein per meal divided by your 3 or 4 meals per day. All right. So once you're able to hit that, more often than not, you'll be satiated, meaning you'll be full. So the opportunity to kind of trick off your diet are going to diminish just because you're satisfied with the food that you ate. So I personally believe that most other stuff is filler. So there's a little bit of use for carbs, but in my system I like to go ahead and separate those days into days where I do focus on getting more carbs into the system. So the other days are more utilized towards stripping away body fat and conserving the muscle. So in the other carb days are days where you get a chance to increase your calories and thus giving your growth potential a little bit of a boost. So you get to kind of play in both worlds for the most part, keeping the muscle a couple of days where you get to grow, but for the most part, we're chipping away and carving and etching and shaping. So we're, really have an opportunity to transform our physique in that manner. So you don't have the opportunity if you're not reaching those thresholds. All right. Now, as far as the measurement, visual and empirical. So the actual number on the weight. So a lot of people just step on a scale and say, okay, I'm gaining weight or losing weight, and have no context to that. All right. So ultimately, we all want to look better. So feeling better is great too. So look and feel better. For the most part, when you look good, you feel pretty good about it. And so basically, whenever you, the eyeball test is pretty much the, I'd say the gold standard. All right. And so the best way to do an eyeball test is I like to think photographically. You're able to put those photographs side by side. All right. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll be able to look for the different aspects of change. So it's not all positive and it's not all negative. And so whenever you're on a program and you have that data next to each other, then you can start to utilize the things that you know. How much cardio have you been doing? So have you been adhering to your diet? So have you been putting too much energy in the system? All right. So this is all information that you have based off of how you've lived your life and being mindful of how you do those type of operations. So every 2 weeks, whenever you do take these measurements as far as the weight measurement and then putting that side by side with the visual evidence, then you can make accurate decisions on how to make the necessary adjustments in order to course correct and continue to move forward. All right. So, because again, if you are on a program and you're even 70% of adherence to the program, you're going to be able to get some gains. All right. And so some gains aren't the same thing. Some gains is not the same thing as maximizing your potential. All right. So in order to maximize your potential, you want to continue to find more ways to be more efficient. So is that being better in the system that you currently constructed, doing 90% of the things you said you would do, or is it doing a little bit more? All right. So we can't have the answers if we don't have essentially the understanding of what we've done to that point. And so that's where the measurements come in. So understanding what you're putting in your system as far as protein wise, having an idea as far as the carbs and the energy that you put in whenever you're putting that in. Then also, looking at the results and being honest with your performance. So side-by-side comparison, once you have the pictures, one thing I do is I like to shoot a video going through the different poses, then I'll screenshot them. All right, there's a couple different apps where you can put them side by side and just say what's going on. How are we doing? So then you have the score. All right, you have the score and then you know what the next play is coming out of the half. All right, so you make the adjustments, move forward, then ultimately continue to track towards your goals. All right, and the things start to move forward at an accelerated rate, then it's about setting bigger goals. So again, most important thing is deciding what do you want to do? All right, and then understand, the abilities that you have at that particular time based off of your current time. All right, and then just slotting it up. So you line up the play, you run the play, then you make the adjustments. Do more, do it better. Max out.